Welcome back. Oh, been waiting for this for a long time. It's been a while since we've talked to our good friend Erick Stakelbeck. He's the director of the Christians United for Israel, CUFI Watchman Project. And it's been a while since we had him on. Hey, buddy, good to see you. How you doing, man?
I'm great, Perry. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to see you. Well, first of all, tell us what the CUFI is.
Well, Christians United for Israel is the largest pro-Israel organization in America, Perry. Over 3.1 million members. Pretty astounding number. CUFI was started in 2006 by Pastor John Hagee. He's the founder and chairman, and it's a movement that's really spread like wildfire throughout the United States, in churches throughout the U.S., where people are learning why they should stand with Israel at this critical time, the biblical basis of pro-Israel support. And it's just been a great, great thing, I think, for the body of Christ and for Israel. The Israelis are very appreciative of this support from the church here in the States.
Well, that's wonderful. And the Watchman Project is what?
It's a major media initiative, Perry, that I'm heading up for CUFI, and the centerpiece is the Watchman TV program on the TBN network. So very busy with that, where we have a lot of things in the works, not only on the TVN, but podcast, digital, radio down the road. So good things happening.
Well, we have our hands up for the program. We'd like to get it, but I know you have an exclusive with TBN. Maybe I should call Matt and take him to lunch, right?
That's it. He's a good guy. That's great.
Okay. Well, listen, Israel. You didn't hear much about Israel in the Democratic convention. You heard a significant amount about it in the Republican convention. So we're dealing with foreign policy here, Erick. Do you have concerns?
Yeah, I do. I do, Perry. I think the course we've been taken on by the Obama administration the past 8 years in the U.S.-Israel relationship has been a disastrous one. And I believe if Hillary Clinton is elected, she's going to continue the Obama foreign policies, not only on Israel, but on ISIS, Iran, the threat of radical Islam around the world, weak response to Russia and China, and so on. But Israel really, I think, is a linchpin of it. The Obama administration has isolated Israel, Perry, in a horrific way over the past 8 years. Made Israel to feel in many ways alone in the world. Now, Israel's not alone in the world, by the way. They're venturing out now and establishing new alliances, new relationships in Africa, in India, and in many other places. But the Obama administration has really put a dent in the U.S.-Israel relationship, at least at the governmental level. Thankfully, poll after poll shows, Perry, that some 70-75% of the American people fully stand behind Israel. But if Hillary Clinton is elected, expect continued hostility in the relationship at the governmental level, at least with Israel.
Well, I've often said, I think of the two issues that we need to be concerned about as believers is where the candidates stand on the life issue and where the candidates stand on the relationship issue with Israel. Those two, to me, are paramount. Well, let me come over to ISIS just for a moment, Erick. We've seen some horrific things happen and continue to happen. It looks like France now be turning to say, hey, wait a minute, we are at war with this. We can't seem to get that declaration out of our own administration. But it appears now that maybe the world is waking up and saying, wait a minute, this has gone way too far. Something needs to be done. Or am I just dreaming here?
Well, I hope you're right, Perry, but Europe seems to be very slow to catch on, and the Obama administration, obviously, is even more slow to catch on that we are in a war. We didn't declare it, we didn't want it, but war was declared against us by Islamic jihadists. It is a global jihad. These are not lone wolves, Perry. These attacks in Orlando, San Bernardino, Paris, Germany, Brussels, they're part of these are soldiers who are part of a global movement, a global struggle, a global jihadist movement against the West, against America, Europe, Israel, against Judeo-Christian Western civilization. That's a fact. Are the Europeans catching on? I hope the French are catching on. Look, in the past 18 months, Perry, we've seen 3 major attacks in France. Of course, just this month, we had the Nice attack, 85 people killed. Germany had 4 attacks this month in a week span alone. And I just read, Perry, before coming on air with you, that every 84 hours, there is an ISIS attack on European soil. So every 3.5 days or so, there is some kind of ISIS incident on European soil. That's astounding. If they're not waking up by now, I don't know when they'll ever wake up.
All right. So the problem is these are mixed in with refugees, and you know that issue, and especially now with Merkel coming out and saying, hey, let all the refugees come to Germany. What are they doing to themselves?
It's a slow suicide. Actually, you could say they're hastening their cultural suicide, Perry, because really in the 1980s, 1990s, really massive waves of Muslim immigration hit Europe's shores. Europe welcomed them in. And now you have the refugees. Look, 1 million refugees flooding into Germany over just a few months span. How do you process all of those people? How do you vet all of those people? The answer is, Perry, you can't. Number one, because of the sheer volume coming in. And number two, these are folks coming from war zones like Syria and Iraq who have no identification. These people aren't passport holders. How do you vet them? How do you look into their background and find out who they really are? It's no surprise, no accident that several of these attacks in Europe that we're discussing in France, in Germany, involve people who came in as refugees or who came into Europe posing as refugees, but were really ISIS operatives. It's an invitation to disaster. I think in the thinking of Western leaders, European leaders here, Perry, Westerners don't reproduce, quite frankly. They have, what, 1 child per couple in Europe? And some of these European leaders think, hey, we'll bring in a new workforce, a new labor force with this massive immigration from the Muslim world, but it's not working out so well.
So we're involved in a religious war, but the Pope says it's not a religious war. How much of a setback is that?
I mean, that to me, that was disheartening to read that this morning, Perry, that he said Islam has no connection to terrorism whatsoever. Look, not every Muslim is a terrorist. We know that. But the overwhelming majority of terrorism being committed in the world today is committed by radical Islamists. We know that. It's just a fact. So for the Pope, the highest authority in the Catholic Church, to essentially bury his head in the sand on this issue is really disheartening, because he's got, what, 1 billion people or millions and millions of people, hundreds of millions around the world following his lead in the Catholic Church. And for him to just bury any Islamic connection to Islamic terrorism shows a real disconnect, and it's troubling. And as much as Western leaders and religious leaders, political leaders, try to just brush it under the rug, the Islamic connection to Islamic jihad. President Obama is a great example. He won't say radical Islam. As much as they do that, it's not having any effect. We're seeing the attacks increase. The more we appease, the more the attacks increase.
We didn't hear anything about radical Islamic terrorism from the Democratic National Convention. Nothing. In fact, it was significantly ignored. And the word military was only used twice in Hillary's speech. What does that tell you?
Tells me there's a total, not only a disconnect, but a total denial of reality. The first day of the Democrat National Convention, Perry, there were 61 speakers. 61 speakers, day-long convention. Not one of them mentioned ISIS. Unbelievable. The greatest, I believe Iran is the greatest national security threat we face, but ISIS is, 1A, 1B. And no one mentioned it. It's one of the most pressing issues, if not the most pressing issue of our time, this global jihad, this existential threat against the West. And the members of a major political party don't even mention it? Wow. It's misleading to the American people at the root of it, Perry. It's dishonest. I mean, it's basically brushing this issue under the rug and telling the American people, hey, this isn't a big threat. It's just, President Obama just thinks this is just a criminal action. This could be dealt with in the courts. It's not a war. It's just a nuisance. And it misleads the American people. It's intellectually dishonest. And the first rule of war, know your enemy. And many people in our country right now are confused about who the enemy is. They're getting mixed messages and mixed signals from their leadership. That's a big problem.
Give us the feel, Erick, in Israel now about the war on terror. I'm sure that they're disappointed that we have an administration that doesn't openly embrace them. Prime Minister Netanyahu is still very vigilant and very strong. But what's the feel among the citizenry there about America and the war on terror?
Well, President Obama obviously is not very popular in Israel. Polls bear that out. That's a fact, for good reason. He has isolated Israel. He's made Israel into the bad guy. He's demanded concessions from Israel and nothing from the Palestinians. He's embraced the Iranian regime, which is committed to Israel's destruction and America's destruction, by the way. So the view is not positive, obviously, of President Obama in Israel, but among Israeli, not only the leadership, but average Israelis, Perry, who I speak to when I'm in Israel, I'm there frequently, there's still a very, very, very positive view of the United States. They still see the United States as their greatest friend, as the last best hope for humanity. Hey, we're not perfect, but we're the best thing going in this upside-down world right now. The Israelis understand that. They love America. They love the American people. Despite the problems with President Obama, we have a very pro-Israel Congress, a very pro-Israel populace here in America, and Israelis understand that.
All right. Well, Erick, you're a delight and inspiration. How can people get involved and help you there with CUFI?
Yeah, Perry, they can go to CUFI.org, that's CUFI.org, and become a member. We're 3.1 million strong, growing every day. I really believe, Perry, that it's a move of God for such a time as this. You know, I want to be where God is. What's God up to? I believe he's up to Israel right now. Miraculous things are happening in that land, and at CUFI, we have a front row seat for it. It's pretty exciting.
All right, thanks, buddy. All right, go to CUFI.org, CUFI.org. Thanks, Erick. Keep up the fight, buddy. Let's stay in touch, okay?
Sounds good, Perry. Thank you. God bless.
Yeah, God bless you. All right, we'll see you next time on Focus Today.
I'm Paulina Leiser, producer of Focus Today. Thank you for watching this video, and make sure to check our other videos at theDove.us.